Hey everyone, happy, was it Wednesday? Okay, this is going to be the story of my brother and his accident and what had happened to him. I did want to ask a question. At the beginning of my videos, I wanted to read like a page or a prayer or something like that, maybe something out of like this book. I wanted to read like a section, just something in the beginning of the video to say we're grateful for God, because I know I am, all about Him. So leave in the comments if you think that's a good idea or not. In the beginning of the video is to have a little prayer said first. Okay, let me get into this. I had to make this is my third time trying to make this video without crying. It was hard. Okay. So it was the spring of 2000. It was May 17th. Remember it like it was yesterday. It was my dad's and my sister's birthday. My sister was born on my dad's birthday. We were only 10 months and 2 days apart. So she had turned, I was 15, she had just turned 15. My brother was 12. My mom was at work. It was a normal day. We were out hanging out with our friends. My dad was on the step drinking. Yeah, he was drinking. He was, he used to do that stuff. That's a whole nother story besides that. He turned it into a party. He brought out the speakers, having a grand old time. It started out to be a great, great day. So my brother was riding around on his bike. I wasn't punished, but I wasn't allowed to leave the block, my dad said. That's what he said. You can't leave the block right now. Okay. That's fine. Wait until Mommy gets home. Okay. So all my friends that I was hanging out with, they all came up the block and hung out with me. So we're sitting across the street. And I'm hanging out with my friends, and my brother's riding his bike, doing his thing that he did every single day. When my dad ran out of beer, he turned to our next door neighbor. He said, "Keep an eye on the kids for me. I'm going to run out and get some more beer. I'll be right back." Well, we're sitting there. My dad leaves. We're not supposed to leave the block. The next door neighbor said, "Well, your brother's allowed to leave the block because he's a boy. Yous are girls. Yous have to stay on the block. We're older. Why can he leave the block and we can't?" But it was a boy-girl thing. They treated us different. I don't know. Maybe some of yous can remember back then that's kind of how it was. They treated the boys and the girls different. But whatever. So he was riding his bike and we were sitting there chilling. My dad was out getting beer. And I swear, he shouldn't have let my brother drive around off the block at this time. So one of my friends that lived up the block from me, he was actually there when I was assaulted. He didn't do it, but he was there, that third person I was telling you about. He had red hair. I think he passed away. He was riding around with my brother. They were playing around on the bikes. Everything was fine. Well, we're sitting on the step. And we're waiting for my dad to get back. I think my dad had just pulled up and was just parking. And the kid on the bike ran up the street as fast as he could. Ken, to my dad. "Your son's in the middle of Mensink Avenue." Now, we lived up a little street called Watkins. And it was front, second, and then Mensink. That's the main street. So he was chasing my brother up the street, and they winded up going into the main street. And when my brother went into the main street, it was a yellow light, and there was a Cambodian guy and a little yellow buggy car, and he sped through the yellow light going 90 miles an hour, and he hit my brother. And that's what the kid told us. He got hit by a car. He's laying in the middle of the street and he's convulsing. the officers there. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And he's crying, crying, crying. So we all jumped up and we're running down the street. It was only like 2-second run, like right down the street. We're running. We're running and we're running. We got there. All we see is a whole crowd around my brother in the middle of the street, and my brother is just laying there, shaking and shaking and shaking. Here we found out the car hit him. He went 16 to 20 feet in the air and fell right down on his head, smack, onto the cement. He was not wearing a helmet. So please, please, and I know it's more common these days, make sure you wear a helmet when you drive that bike, any kind of bike, whatever it may be. Please put that helmet on, because it could save your life. 16 to 20 feet in the air, smashed down on the concrete, his head. When we seen him, it started getting darker. The kid that was chasing him went and got my mom at work. She was working at a Wawa at the time. And then all you see is my mom on his pegs on the back of his bike coming up. Where's my son? And my dad's holding him, and the ambulance are working on him, and he's convulsing in the middle of the street. My sister pulls up from one of her friends. She was out with one of her friends. She didn't know anything that was going on. She drove up to that. She was bawling out crying. We were bawling out crying because all we saw was my brother convulsing in the middle of the street. It was like we lost our brother. Like, what's going to happen? So the crowd was around us. My boyfriend was standing behind me, and he saw me bawling out crying, and he was trying to make me laugh. And I don't know why at that time would you try to make somebody laugh, like my brother's laying in the middle of the street dying. But he said something, and for some reason, I laughed. It was the most horrible thing I could have done. But one of the girls, the older girls that lived next door to me, she checked me. She was like, your brother is laying in the middle of the street dying. What the fuck are you doing laughing? She checked me right away. So I straightened up. Not laughing. I'm sorry. I pushed him away from me. Get away. Why are you making me laugh right now? This is not the time. So they're working on my brother, and they're looking at us like there's no chance. There's a slight chance. So they got him up they put him on the gurney, they got him into the ambulance, and they started driving away. Well, my dad hopped in the car, he put me and my sister in the car, and my mom was in the car. And he was driving as fast as the ambulance, like he was tail to tail with them, like right behind them. That was his baby boy. Like he wasn't leaving no, my mom was inside the ambulance with him. I'm sorry. My dad drove me and my sister to the hospital. We went to Children's Hospital, one of the best hospitals in the world. They have them all over. Thank God for Children's Hospital. So we got to the hospital. We're all sitting there. My family started showing up. You know, my cousins, my aunts, everybody. They're all in the waiting room crying. You know, the nurse comes in. Oh, I'm sorry, forgot. My dad's tailing this ambulance because he wants to know what's going on. He wants to be right there with my brother. The ambulance had to stop and actually get out of the car and tell my dad, you have to stop at the red lights and the stop signs. You can't follow us. It can cause an accident. So my dad had to, you know, pull back, and he was upset about it, but he had to do it. So he did. The ambulance kept going, and we made it there to Children's Hospital. Whew, I'm getting upset. So we're sitting there. We're all in the waiting room. My mom and my dad's right at the room where they're working on him at. They came out. They said he has 24 hours at this point. So we all got together and we started praying. And we started praying and praying and praying and hugging him. And just to see your brother laying there like that, hooked up to all these tubes and a full body cast. I mean, from shoulders to toes, covered in a body cast, in a coma, not saying anything, not moving, nothing. He was a very active kid. He had ADHD, but he was a very active kid. He loved running around and playing. He loved it. So they said, you know, he only has 24 hours. They're going to read him his last rites. Sorry. So we're all standing around the bed, and the priest came in and gave him his last rites. And blessed these rosary beads and put them over his chest. And they were like, say your goodbyes. So we all said our goodbyes. And we sat in the waiting room. And my dad was like, my mom and dad, they were like, we're not leaving here. We're not going anywhere. We're staying right here. So all through the night, we're sleeping in the room with him now. My mom's sleeping on one side of the bed. My dad's on the other side. Me and my sister are balled up in the waiting room with my cousins. And we're not even sleeping. We're just laying there waiting for the bad news. Just waiting for them to say, it's done. He's gone. So 24 hours had passed. They checked on him. They said, okay, we're giving him 72 hours. You know, because the oxygen's helping him, and that's the only thing that's keeping him alive right now. So we're going to give him another 24 hours. So now we're going into 48 hours. We're going to give him his last rites again, they said. So we're all standing around again. The priest comes in and reads him his last rites again. Again, we're going through it. We're saying goodbye to him. We love him, you know. We're always going to remember you. And we still wouldn't leave. We were like, we're not leaving here until you tell us he's no longer here with us. But as long as he's breathing, his chest is still pumping, we're staying right here. We're not moving. Again, we slept there. They said we're going to give him 72 hours now. Okay, well, what's making you think to give him more time? Well, his breathing's starting to improve a little bit, but that could just be because it's his last, and you know how your body works. When you're dying, you feel the best, they said. So that's what we thought was happening. You know, he was going to come out of it, and he was going to pass away. He went into a coma. He started seizing, and they said, yeah, he ain't going to last after 72 hours. The seizures are going to destroy his brain, like he's going to be brain dead. So the priest came in again and read his last rites again for the third time, okay? The third time he read his last rites. So we're all in the room again, crowded around the bed. The priest read his last rites too. We're saying goodbye to him again, you know, saying he's strong, everything like that. Every day they kept saying, well, another day, another day. A week went by and they were like, he might make it. He's in a coma, he's seduced right now, but he might make it. So we had a little bit of hope. Hold on, my cat is like bugging me. So, yeah. So we had some hope. So we were staying at the hospital. And he was in a coma. And I remember every night we would sleep in the room with him on the floor, on that hard floor in the hospital. They gave us blankets and pillows and everything. And we were sleeping, but he would go into these massive convulsions in the middle of the night. It took 14 doctors, my mom, me, my dad, and my sister, to hold him down. because he was convulsing so bad. It was like, I don't want to say it this way, but I don't know any other word to say. It was like retard strength, you know, or like a mother's love when the baby gets stuck under a car kind of strength. Nobody can control him. Like, he was a 12-year-old little boy. Why can't you just hold him down? 14 to 16 doctors, plus my mom, plus me, and my dad. Sister trying to hold him down because he was shaking so bad. They kept giving him medicine to calm him down, calm him down. He was in a coma for, I think it was 3 weeks. He was in a coma for, or maybe longer. I can't remember. He was in a coma for 3 weeks. And every day, my mom and dad started taking turns staying at the hospital. Like, my dad would stay, my mom would go home, get a shower, get dressed, take us with her, get us dressed and showered, and go right back up to the hospital. Or, you know, my mom would give my dad a break and let him go home. He went out drinking and everything like that, and we would stay up the hospital. Well, we kind of moved into the hospital because we were there so much. We didn't want to leave him. My dad was like, that's my only boy, my baby boy. I'm not leaving him. We're living here. So they set us up this little room. And we were in the Ronald McDonald House. And he was still out of it. He wasn't talking. He was still in a coma. And we got put in a room. It was like a little playroom with toys and everything like that. So we brought our dolls there. We try to have fun and try to make the best of it. Knowing our brother's in the room and we don't know what's going to happen. It can turn at any moment of time because he's still in a coma. We don't know what's going to happen. He could pass away still. So we were just hoping and praying. But we moved into the hospital. They let us. We lived on McDonald's food, by the way. Shout out to the Ronald McDonald House. That was a savior for my parents and a lot of other parents. Because when your kid's in that kind of situation, you don't want to leave them. You want to be with them in any way, shape, or form. And that's what they did. And they provided us with a place to stay there with him. They let us sleep in a room with him if we wanted to. I even laid next to him on the bed sometimes just to hold him and feel him again, you know, because he was my baby brother. I remember changing his diapers, like, come on now. So 3 weeks went by and he was still in a coma. He was starting to come out of it. So we were getting hopeful. He started coming out. He couldn't talk. He couldn't really move. His eyes were just open. He didn't know who anybody was. Do you know how hard it hurts or how bad it hurts to walk in and see your brother that you grew up with, or your son that you gave birth to and raised? He don't know who you are and is scared of you now because you're a stranger to him. He don't know you. He didn't know us at all. And so he kept getting freaked out. So they kept just giving him medicine to calm him down and put him to sleep because they said he needs to stay rested because he damaged the frontal lobe, his frontal lobe. And that's his emotions and stuff like that. Like, that's what he damaged. And they said that's a very serious part of the brain. So they have to be very careful with what they do. And they didn't want him stressing out too bad. So they kept sedating him to keep him calm for his head. So I didn't understand at the time because I was only 15. I kind of understood because my dad tried to describe it to us and tell us it. But, you know, we only wanted to hear what we wanted to hear. We wanted to hear he was going to be okay, but we couldn't hear that. So, 3 weeks had went by. He started coming out of it little by little. And little by little, they started taking off the casts. He was just in a cast from his waist down now. You know, his upper body had healed, but his head was wrapped. And there's patches because they did so many surgeries on him. So his head was wrapped up. We were in the hospital, and they were still treating him. They were still iffy if he was going to make it or not. So a couple more weeks went by, and I think we're now up to like 5 or 6 weeks we've been in this hospital going through this. Day by day, he's getting a tad bit better every day. And that was a good thing, fingers crossed, because he could have got worse every day, and he didn't. He started getting better. Well, he winded up getting the one cast off his one leg. He had to keep the cast off on the leg he fell on, because he fell like kind of on his side and hit his head. Like the front of his head went down and the side of his leg got damaged really bad when he hit the cement 16 feet in the air down. So that side of his body was casted up still. Like they had to secure that. So he started getting better enough that they wanted to move him to a different room, into a crib type room. And we were like, a crib? What do you mean? And they were like, it's a bed with a net on it, and they kind of zipper it from the top, and they zipper him in this bed so he can't get out, because he was a danger to himself and people around him. Because mind you, he still don't know where he is. He don't know what's going on. He don't know us. He don't know my mom, my dad. He didn't know anybody. He didn't know what was wrong with him. So he was in that room. My dad did not want him in that room at all. Well, he started coming to a little bit. He started recognize. The first person he recognized was my dad. He recognized my dad. And he just kept, every time, because it was certain times of the day that they were like, we have to, lock him up and zip him up in the bed. He's getting a little feisty. This is around the time it always happens. We have to give him medicine and we have to zip him up. And my dad was like, no, I'm not doing this. And they did that. And they made us get out of the room and made him stay in there by himself. And he just kept screaming, and started screaming. My dad started crying, let me in the room. I need to get my son. He pushed everybody out of the way. He got in that room, and he was like, I don't care what you do to me. I'm not leaving his side. I'm not letting you do this to him. You are not caging him like an animal. He is a human being. So they kind of worked with us, and they let us stay in the room with him. And they started letting people come up to see him. And I was always laying in the bed with him. And he started coming out of it a little bit, and he started recognizing people. He knew who I was. He still couldn't talk. He couldn't walk. He couldn't feed himself. Nothing. He was still on feeding tubes, everything. Catheterized, diapers on. Everything. It was like he was a newborn. His favorite show, I don't know if anybody heard of it before, it was called The Land Before Time. It was about dinosaurs. Littlefoot, Sarah, Chomper, and all that. So we always played that for him because it was something familiar that he would recognize once he came out of it. And I kept trying to help him try to talk. I wanted him to talk again. I missed his voice. So it came on, I put the movie on, and Chomper came up, and I kept going, Chomper, Kenny, look, Chomper, your favorite dinosaur, it's Chomper. 3 days I kept saying that to him. Out of nowhere, we were watching it, and he goes, Chomper? His first word was Chomper. I started crying. I started freaking out. I was so happy. I called my dad in because he went out to get a drink. he came in and he was like, what? And I was like, tell him, Kenny, tell him, who is that? And he went, Chopper. And my dad started bawling out, crying. He said, who am I? He said, Daddy. Huh. Just to hear his voice again. It was, it was like you're hearing your baby say their first words again. Their first words for the first time. It was amazing. So he started talking little by little. And, you know, some of his friends wanted to see him. Well, in the middle of all this, my father's sister, the biggest itch in the world, okay, conniving, stealing people's identities, like the most evil person you can think of, started with my dad. Wanted to fight with him for some reason, like his son's in the hospital, almost died. Why are you starting with him? I don't want him at my parents' house. They're his parents too. I'm taking him to court and blah, 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 blah. He told the judge, because he called up and he told them the situation that's going on. Like, my son is in the hospital. I can't leave him. Well, his sister would not go through this case unless he was present in the courtroom. So she made him leave his son in the hospital. Just starting to talk, just starting to be him, like, you know, learning stuff and everything like that. Pull him out of the hospital to sit in a courtroom to put a restraining order so he can't go to his parents' house anymore. That's a whole nother story. But she pulled him away from his son. That's the main part. Like, why would you do that to somebody? Like, he's going through enough. You're going to make him sit in a courtroom to put a restraining order on him? He didn't have to be there. It wasn't court ordered. She could have did it without him there. But no, as the itch that she was, the conniving, hiding that she liked females, nothing wrong with it, but she hid it and she made it look dirty. And her daughter thought she was big and bad, and mind you, I was close with them. Like, I considered her my mother, and that was my sister. Like, that's how I looked at them. I lived with them. I stayed with them every weekend. I went to trips. I'll get into that story. Anyway, she pulled my dad out, made him go to court. He went to court, and he's crying in the courtroom, and the judge is like, Miss, how could you do this to your own brother? That ain't my brother. Blah, 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 blah. So they put the restraining order. My dad said, put it on me for life. I don't ever want to be around her anyway. I don't want her around me or my kids anyway. So he didn't care. For life. It was only for 5 years. He rushed back to the hospital. Okay, so now we're back at the hospital. He's back at the hospital. He feels better. He's with his son now. So we're in the hospital. So my mom said, you know, a couple of his friends are asking to come up and see him. Do you think that's possible? And they said, you know, it might be good. He can have 1 or 2 friends come up. So we brought one of his best friends up, and it was actually the boy that was chasing him on the bike that got him into the accident. It was his younger brother that he was best friends with. So he came up, and he brought him gifts. And the Phantoms came. It's the team under the Flyers, like, I forget what they're called, but they're called the Phantoms, and they're hockey players. They all came, and they visited my brother. They signed cards, and, you know, they signed his room, and everybody in his classroom at his school made him cards, and they were hung all over the room. Like, he had a lot of support, and there was a lot of people that cared and missed him and everything. Now, it was coming up to our graduation. I'm graduating 8th grade, me and my sister. We were in the same grade because I got held back. So he's in the hospital. He's getting better and better and better and better. He started learning how to eat on his own. He still couldn't walk. I mean, he was able to move his arms now. He was talking a little bit better. He was getting his speech back. Little by little, I was teaching him. My dad was. We were each taking turns. I was getting him familiar with, human touch. He would still have little, spazzes in the middle of the night. And he would, wake up and not know where he was and, spazz out and hit and kick. You know how many times he punched me? He didn't mean to, but he hit me because I was in the crib with him and I shouldn't have been, so it was my fault. So he started coming out of it little by little, and we were there for a total of, I'm sorry, my ears are itching. We were in the hospital for a total of 5 months. We were in the hospital with him going through this. So now it's June. No, it can't because... Okay. No, he was still in the hospital come June. They wanted to keep him in the hospital longer. That's what it was. I got it mixed up. It was supposed to be 5 months. We were in there from May till June. And they wanted to keep him longer. And my dad was like, I really want him home. Can we do home care? He was well enough that he was able to come home with a hospital bed, a wheelchair, and a doctor would come every day and check up on him and everything like that. And he was doing good. He still couldn't walk. He still had the cast on his leg. And he was in the wheelchair, but he started acting like himself. And it was just great to have him around again. I mean, he lost a lot of weight, and it didn't look like my brother, but it was my brother, and I didn't care. It was him. I wanted him with me. So I remember because we were going from that house and we had moved into the hospital, we lost that house and we were moving, and that was good for me too because of the situation that had happened to me, and I wanted to get away anyway. So my brother was on one side of the house in a wheelchair, and I was on the other side of the house near the kitchen. He was in the living room, and we were throwing the football back and forth, innocent play. My mom and dad were out getting boxes, to clean up. And mind you, the kid that was chasing him felt so bad that he secluded himself from everybody, and he stayed in the house. He felt so guilty. He was crying every day. He just thought like he ruined this kid's life, so he wouldn't talk to us. And I kept telling him, like, it wasn't your fault. Like, yous were chasing each other, yous were having fun, you didn't know that car was going to come out. And he kept apologizing, and he didn't want to hear it. He blamed himself. And I understood that. So me and my brother were playing football in the house. Well, the football, I threw it too hard, and he didn't catch it. It went right through the window. Shattered the whole window. Well, he came running up, the kid that got into the accident, and he hasn't talked to us since the accident. And he was like, what the hell were you doing in there? And I was like, we were playing catch with the football, and it kind of went through the window, and if my mom and dad comes home, we're going to get in a lot of trouble. So he helped us fix the window. I mean, he put this plastic on there, and it was not even plastic. It was like paper wrapper, or like that see-through stuff. I forget. But he put it on there so good that it looked like glass, like nothing ever happened. So he put it all back together. My parents came home. They had no clue that we just busted a window because he fixed it so good. So we just played along, act like everything was fine. He still wasn't walking. Well, graduation came up. We weren't really happy about it because what was going on with my brother. That's what we were more concerned about. So, we went to our graduation. My mom and dad went. My brother was there. He still couldn't stand at that time, we didn't think. So they called us up, everybody by name to get our diplomas, and it was our 8th grade graduation. We sang that vitamin C song, and when we were all up there, we all had a stand to sing this song, and the one main girl that sang the main parts was on the stage, and we were all like in chairs lined up, and my brother was in a couple rows back with my mom and dad in the wheelchair, and everybody got up to clap for us because we graduated, and my brother, for the first time, stood up out of his wheelchair and started clapping. Well, me and my sister looked at each other and just started bawling out, crying. So did some of my friends, because they did know what had happened. I mean, one lived right around the corner from me. She was there through it all. She was my heart at that time. I loved her. She got me through a lot. He stood up, and that was the best feeling in the world, to see my brother stand up on his feet for the first time since the accident. And he was in that cast for about 6 months or longer. He was in that cast for a long time, because when we moved, he was still in that cast in the new house. And my dog had puppies in the middle of all this too. So we had puppies, and, a lot was going on. But anyway, all in the end, my brother came out of it. He's happy. He's healthy. They did sue the guy. Now, in the beginning, he was supposed to get up to $500,000. He got pronounced dead 3 times. I thought he deserved that much or more. Guess how much this kid got when he was 18? No, my dad made it for 21. So I don't know if my mom and dad dabbled in the money and didn't say nothing or what, because the kid only winded up with $6,000 out of it all for getting pronounced dead 3 times. You're only walking away with $6,000. My sister broke her pinky falling on somebody's property, and she got $8,000. Why are you only getting $6,000? And you were supposed to get $500,000. Where did the money go? So, in my mind, I'm thinking my parents were allowed to, they were allowed to touch it. He wasn't until he was 21, not 18. They made it harder for him until he was 21. So on his 21st birthday, we were in my first apartment, and we were like, you can get your money out. He didn't know how much he was getting out. He thought he was getting a really good amount. He walked out with $6,000. I couldn't believe it. I was like, you were supposed to get up to almost $500,000. Well, when I called my parents up and I asked them, why did Kenny only get $6,000? He was pronounced dead. This guy almost killed him. Like, he should get more money. Why? What happened? Oh, well, this is my parents said. Oh, well, we didn't want to go through with the whole court case. We just wanted him to be healthy, and we gave in and we settled at that price. We didn't care. We just cared about his health. I understand you cared more about his health than the money, so do I. But he was entitled to that money, regardless. It just didn't make sense. It just did not make sense. And to this day, they still won't say what happened. So we left that alone. They said he wasn't going to be a normal kid growing up. He was going to have problems. He damaged his frontal lobe. It's permanent damage for the rest of his life. He's not going to be right. He has to go on Social Security. He's not going to be able to work. Blah, blah, blah. My dad. I ain't putting my son on Social Security. He's going to work. He's going to be fine. Okay, whatever. We were kids. We couldn't say anything at the time, and my dad didn't listen to us anyway like that. He was the father, and he made the rules. That's another story. Anyway. So, my dad... My dad took the money. I know he did. I know he did. They just won't admit it, but that's okay. But he was never put on Social Security. My brother was never put on Social Security. They said that he wasn't going to be right. He was going to be slow. He was going to have a lot of problems, speech impediments, this and that. This kid is, I'm 40. I'm going to be 40 in July. He's 3 years younger. 39, 3. So he's going to be 37. Walking around perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with him. Has good memory. You know, he tokes a little bit here and there. But he rides a bike. He drives a car. He works doing roofing and housings and whatever he can do. He has a girlfriend. That's another story. He's doing really, really good. And from what happened to him and what the doctors said what was going to happen to him when he got older, he proved everybody wrong. And he is the strongest person I know right now. And I love him to death, even though we don't talk right now because of his girlfriend. I love him to death because he's been through so much, and he turned it into a positive thing, and he's still doing everything he ever wanted to do, and he's happy and normal. I mean, you could see the scars on his head. He has scars here, he has scars here, he has scars here. I mean, there are scars all over his head from the accident, but he's perfectly fine, happy, healthy 37-year-old man walking around, breathing. So, to end that, don't always believe the hospital or the doctors or the nurses. They don't know everything. It can turn around. They said he wasn't going to make it 24 hours. Then they gave him 48. Then they gave him 72 to coming home being happy and healthy. So now that is what happened to my brother. And may many good things happen to him and great things happen to him. I haven't talked to him in a long time. It's been since the summertime I haven't spoke to him. This girl that he's with is just, I don't know. But he loves her, and I guess that's all that matters, right? But yeah, if you have any questions, if you want to know anything else or more, please leave it in the comments. Be gentle, please be gentle in the comments. Say how you feel. Be real. It's okay. Hope you all enjoyed the story. Sorry I cried through some of it because it was hard. That was my baby brother. But thank yous for sticking around and watching this video. And as always, thank you for being here. Make sure you subscribe to the AK fam. As always, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share, whatever you feel like you have to do. Please do that. Please leave in the comments whatever you would like to know, hear, or talk about. And let me know if you think it's a good idea if I should read a quote in the beginning of my videos or say a little prayer in the beginning of my videos. I think that would be really nice to bring God in closer to us. So, again, leave in the comments. As always, much love. Stay safe out there. And until next time, I'll talk to you. Bye. And again, like, comment, and subscribe.